For the INFJ, who is already introspective and deeply affected by their environment, these scars run even deeper and can be incredibly difficult to heal. In this note, we'll explore why trauma can impact INFJs so profoundly, the unique challenges they face, and steps they can take to move toward recovery. INFJs experience trauma on an intensely personal level due to their high sensitivity, depth of empathy, and natural inclination to process everything through introspection. When trauma occurs, it's rarely just an external event to an INFJ, it becomes an internalized narrative woven deeply into their psyche, where the pain doesn't just linger but expands, revisiting their thoughts and emotions repeatedly. Here's why trauma can impact INFJs so uniquely. When they encounter trauma, they might fall into a trap of overthinking, trying to dissect every detail to find meaning or sense within it. This can lead to rumination, where instead of moving forward, they become stuck in a loop, replaying the trauma in their minds in an attempt to solve it. INFJs are inclined to think, "What could I have done differently?" rather than focusing on the unfairness or impact of the trauma itself. This self-blame can become an added layer of pain, making it harder to separate the trauma from their own identity and sense of worth. INFJs often have a delicate sense of trust that can be deeply shaken by trauma, especially if it involves betrayal, manipulation, or other forms of abuse. They rely on a stable, trusting environment to thrive emotionally, so when that trust is broken, it feels like the ground beneath them has shattered. This sense of betrayal can lead INFJs to put up emotional walls or avoid situations that require trust, which can prevent them from forming new connections that are essential for healing. They might become wary of opening up to others, fearing that the vulnerability that led to their trauma could only lead to further hurt. INFJs often hold idealistic views of people and the world, which can leave them vulnerable to disillusionment when those ideals are shattered by traumatic experiences. Their high expectations of kindness, honesty, and respect are often at odds with the darker realities they encounter, creating an internal conflict. This disillusionment can make it difficult for INFJs to reconcile their hopeful nature with a world that doesn't always meet their ideals. Consequently, they may struggle with feelings of deep sadness or disappointment, as they navigate the painful realization that the world can be harsher than they once believed. Many INFJs naturally empathize with and care for others, sometimes to the point of neglecting their own boundaries. This tendency can make them susceptible to trauma, as they may find themselves in situations where they're taken advantage of or manipulated. Without strong boundaries, INFJs may feel overwhelmed by the demands and emotions of others, especially in relationships where trauma is present. Learning to set and respect their own boundaries becomes essential for INFJs as they work toward recovery, as it helps them regain control over their emotions and limits the external sources of distress. After experiencing trauma, INFJs may retreat even further into themselves, not wanting to share their pain with others out of fear of being misunderstood or burdening loved ones. This isolation can make the impact of trauma more severe, as they lack the social support necessary for healing. I.N.F.J.'s preference for solitude becomes a double-edged sword. While it may feel safer to keep their struggles to themselves, it also prevents them from finding the community or companionship that could help them process and release some of their pain. Overcoming this tendency to withdraw is a key step in their recovery journey. This empathic weight can make healing from complex trauma even harder, as they constantly feel responsible for everyone's emotional well-being, including their own. INFJs are often deeply introspective and hold themselves to high moral and personal standards. This trait can be valuable for personal growth, yet when trauma enters the picture, it also brings forth an intensified version of the INFJ's inner critic. Rather than viewing traumatic events as unfortunate circumstances beyond their control, INFJs are prone to internalizing these experiences, directing their intense focus inward and asking themselves what they could have done differently. They may scrutinize their actions and reactions under a mental microscope, critiquing every small decision they made, as if finding a flaw in themselves could retroactively change the past. This is often where the INFJ's struggle with self-compassion becomes evident. However, trauma often involves complex and painful emotions that defy logic. By trying to impose order on something inherently chaotic, INFJs may unintentionally keep themselves tied to their pain, as the search for answers becomes a never-ending journey of self-recrimination. For INFJs, the journey towards silencing the inner critic is a vital step in trauma recovery. Recognizing that they are not defined by the painful experiences they endured allows them to reclaim their self-worth and refocus on healing, free from the weight of self-blame. This shift, while difficult, is the key to freeing themselves from trauma's grip and moving toward a life marked by self-compassion, acceptance, and growth. This guardedness can prevent them from building new, healthy connections that could support their healing journey. Learning to trust again, slowly and on their terms, allows INFJs to build safer, nurturing relationships. INFJs are introspective by nature, but after trauma, this tendency can turn against them. Trauma triggers overthinking patterns, making it easy for INFJs to replay painful memories, search for meaning, or blame themselves. INFJs benefit from recognizing that constantly giving isn't sustainable. By learning to value their own energy, they can better understand the importance of being selective about who and what they give their time to. This involves a significant mindset shift, as INFJs come to see boundaries not as selfish walls but as essential acts of self-respect and care. INFJs often blur the line between empathy and personal responsibility. They feel deeply when someone they care about is in distress and may rush to help, sometimes even at their own expense. Yet, it's essential for INFJs to recognize that empathy doesn't mean they are personally responsible for solving others' problems or carrying their emotional burdens. Understanding this distinction is freeing for INFJs, as it allows them to show empathy without losing themselves in someone else's problems. For INFJs, the word no can feel foreign, especially when asked for help or emotional support. They often worry that by saying no, they'll hurt someone's feelings or seem unkind. However, mastering the art of saying no is one of the most important steps in protecting their energy. It may help INFJs to remember that saying no doesn't mean they don't care, it means they value their well-being enough to acknowledge their limits. Establishing a simple yet honest response like, "I'm not available to help right now, but I wish you the best," can make this process easier. INFJs are highly sensitive to the emotional energy around them, and certain environments can quickly deplete their reserves. Situations that are loud, chaotic, or emotionally tense can leave INFJs feeling drained and overstimulated. Recognizing these triggers can help them avoid or limit time spent in such environments, protecting their energy in the process. Creating a personal sanctuary space, whether it's a room at home, a quiet spot outdoors, or even a few minutes of solitude throughout the day, can be incredibly restorative. If INFJs notice that a person's presence always leaves them feeling empty or anxious, it's a sign to reassess the relationship. This mutual respect makes relationships stronger and more fulfilling. INFJs who learn to communicate their needs clearly can maintain closeness without sacrificing their well-being. For example, if a friend needs support, an INFJ might say, "I want to be there for you, but I also need some time to recharge. Can we talk tomorrow?" This approach acknowledges both their friend's needs and their own, preserving their energy while still being supportive. Setting boundaries allows INFJs to channel their energy toward self-care, which is essential for trauma recovery. When INFJs prioritize their own needs and take the time to heal, they gradually rebuild the inner resources that allow them to help others without harming themselves. This means engaging in activities that nourish their soul, such as creative hobbies, spending time in nature, or simply enjoying solitude. In the end, boundaries are the key to cultivating resilience, inner strength, and self-love, empowering INFJs to heal and thrive. Creative expression can be incredibly healing for INFJs as they process trauma. Writing, art, music, or other forms of creativity allow them to channel emotions in a safe, constructive way. Creative outlets offer INFJs a voice for their pain, helping them externalize complex feelings they may otherwise keep bottled up. These outlets can also serve as a reminder of their resilience and provide a source of pride and accomplishment on their healing journey. For INFJs recovering from complex trauma, seeking help through trauma-informed therapy can be transformative. Trauma-informed therapy is a therapeutic approach specifically designed to understand, recognize, and respond to the effects of trauma, providing a safe and supportive environment for the healing process. INFJs, with their deep-seated empathy and introspective nature, often internalize trauma in ways that make traditional therapeutic approaches feel ineffective or even dismissive. Trauma-informed therapy, however, respects the individual's unique experiences and focuses on helping INFJs regain a sense of control, safety, and self-compassion as they work through the layers of trauma. Trauma-informed therapy is structured to be sensitive to the needs of those who have experienced deep emotional pain, and it can help INFJs feel understood and validated in ways they may not have before. Therapists who specialize in trauma-informed care recognize that trauma impacts the mind and body, affecting everything from physical health to emotional resilience. They focus on creating a safe, non-judgmental space where INFJs feel secure enough to explore their feelings, which is essential since INFJs are naturally private and may have difficulty trusting others with their most vulnerable thoughts. Additionally, trauma-informed therapy prioritizes pacing and patience. Rather than rushing toward fixing or moving on, it gently guides INFJs through their experiences, validating their trauma and encouraging them to process it at a pace that feels safe. This allows INFJs to gain deeper self-awareness and self-compassion while feeling fully supported through the therapeutic journey. One of the most damaging aspects of trauma for INFJs is the way it can erode self-worth. Trauma can distort an INFJ's perception of themselves, leading to feelings of shame, self-blame, and guilt. Trauma-informed therapy helps INFJs challenge these damaging internal narratives, guiding them toward a healthier, more compassionate understanding of themselves. By working with a trauma-informed therapist, INFJs can begin to distinguish their true identity from the stories that trauma has caused them to believe. The therapist might use specific techniques, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, or narrative therapy, to help INFJs reshape these self-perceptions. By reframing these narratives, INFJs can reclaim their self-worth and start seeing themselves through a more positive lens, reinforcing that they are not defined by what happened to them. INFJs are particularly susceptible to emotional overwhelm, especially when processing trauma. Trauma-informed therapy provides tools and techniques that help INFJs manage and cope with intense emotions. Techniques such as grounding exercises, mindfulness practices, and emotional regulation strategies can help INFJs better navigate moments of overwhelm, especially when old trauma responses are triggered. These tools are designed to empower INFJs to self-soothe and regain control over their emotional responses. For instance, grounding exercises like deep breathing, body scanning, or tactile techniques, such as holding a comforting object, can help bring INFJs back to the present moment, reducing anxiety and fear. Having these strategies in their toolkit makes it easier for INFJs to face difficult emotions without feeling entirely consumed by them. Setting boundaries can be challenging for INFJs, particularly those who have experienced trauma and may feel obligated to meet others' needs to feel worthy. Trauma-informed therapy helps INFJs understand that boundaries are not only healthy but essential for their emotional and mental well-being. A skilled therapist can guide INFJs through identifying where they need boundaries and practice setting them in safe, controlled ways. Boundaries are reframed not as ways of keeping people out, but as acts of self-respect and self-care. Over time, INFJs can learn to set limits on how much they give to others and recognize that their needs are equally important. This new understanding can make a profound difference in how INFJs approach relationships, allowing them to feel secure enough to prioritize their own healing and well-being. INFJs often experience trauma in a profoundly internal way, processing pain, guilt, and fear deeply within themselves. Trauma-informed therapists understand that these reactions aren't weaknesses but natural responses to overwhelming experiences. They acknowledge that INFJs may have developed coping mechanisms, such as detachment or self-isolation, as survival strategies rather than simply seeing them as avoidance behaviors. Validating these responses is critical to healing, as it allows INFJs to let go of the self-criticism often associated with their trauma responses. By understanding that these responses were developed for self-protection, INFJs can work on healthier ways to cope without the added weight of self-blame. One of the most powerful outcomes of trauma-informed therapy is the development of self-compassion. INFJs often hold themselves to incredibly high standards, which can make self-forgiveness and compassion difficult. Trauma-informed therapy encourages INFJs to treat themselves with the same kindness and empathy they naturally extend to others. Through compassionate practices, INFJs can learn to accept themselves, flaws and all, and recognize that healing is a journey that requires patience and understanding. Resilience grows from this newfound self-compassion. As INFJs build emotional strength, they begin to see themselves as more than their trauma. Instead, they recognize that they are capable of healing, learning, and growing from their experiences. This resilience becomes a foundation for INFJs to move forward in life with greater confidence and inner peace. Trauma can feel all-encompassing, but trauma-informed therapy encourages INFJs to see their journey as one of growth and transformation. By working with a therapist who respects their unique experiences, INFJs are able to heal in ways that are deeply validating and empowering. With the tools, support, and self-awareness gained in therapy, INFJs can not only recover but also thrive beyond trauma, finding a renewed sense of purpose and inner strength. Ultimately, trauma-informed therapy offers INFJs a pathway to healing that aligns with their sensitivity, introspection, and deep emotional insight. Through this approach, INFJs can emerge from trauma more self-aware, resilient, and ready to engage with life in a way that honors both their past experiences and their hopes for the future. In this journey, INFJs find not just recovery but also a profound reconnection with themselves. INFJs are typically compassionate toward others but may struggle to extend that same grace to themselves. Self-compassion is essential for healing, as it helps INFJs recognize that they are worthy of kindness and care, even in moments of vulnerability or weakness. By practicing self-compassion, INFJs can replace self-blame with self-acceptance, which is a powerful antidote to the guilt and shame often tied to trauma. For INFJs recovering from complex trauma, healing is a challenging but transformative journey. The path requires self-compassion, support, and a willingness to reframe the relationship they have with their pain. While INFJs might struggle more deeply with trauma due to their sensitivity, empathy, and introspection, these same qualities also equip them with the tools to heal on a profound level. Healing is possible, and INFJs have a unique ability to emerge from their experiences with an even greater depth of understanding, empathy, and strength. If you've been through trauma as an INFJ, know that your journey to healing can serve as a testament to your resilience. Let us know your thoughts, or if you've found methods that help on this path. We invite you to comment, share your experience, and support each other in the healing process.